Hello, my name is Audrey Williams of Audrey Williams Flowers to Interiors, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm a floral as well as an interior designer, and I'm based in the countryside with my family. And we have been living here, I thought it was 11 years, but it's actually over 12 years. And basically, I'm just doing this series to share with you the experiences that we've had living in the countryside, seeing as we were living in the city before in London, and what it's like and what we've come across and what we've learnt. So one of the reasons why we wanted to move to the countryside is we wanted a more slower pace life. I read the book Country Living and the advantages of by Ellen G. White and the advantages of living in the countryside. Also wanted to grow our own food. My daughter in particular wanted me to explore it while she was away at uni about moving to the countryside. So there was quite a wealth of things that we needed to do, and I had to do an awful lot of research on moving to the countryside because I'm born and bred in London and I kind of really didn't know what to expect. But we did have a criteria as to what we wanted. And so the first criteria was that we needed 3 or 4 bedroom house, detached, and with some outbuildings. Because when I was doing the research, if you wanted to do any preserving, if you want to have any storage, if of anything that you needed in the countryside, you kind of need outbuildings or some sort of storage. And if we couldn't find property that already had solar panels, we wanted it to have the capacity to be able to have solar panels, and therefore you need some sort of storage in order for like battery backups. So that's one of the criterias. The other criteria was we wanted something that had at least 1/4 of an acre of land around it. We wanted to have somewhere where you could grow some food, and also where I could grow some flowers, as I'm a floral designer. And but primarily we wanted to have at least an allotment size section that we could grow food, and somewhere where we could house a greenhouse and a shed as well. One of the other criteria was we wanted it to be quite secluded. When you read A Country Living, it talks about trying to find a property, looking for a property that wasn't very close proximity to neighbours. So that was one of the criteria, that we didn't have any immediate neighbours, so it wasn't a terraced house. It definitely had to be attached, but with some room around it. We also wanted to make sure that we didn't have any floodplains in the area, so we looked for properties that, you know, wasn't going to have any problems with flooding for obvious reasons. It increases the insurance a lot, and obviously the worry about having floodplains. We wanted to make sure that the property was on a country lane, not on a B road, because I didn't want like lots of traffic. I wanted it to be quite relatively quiet. So that was another criteria on the list. Now, another thing that we wanted was we wanted arable land. When we sold our house in London and we didn't move to this property straight away, we actually rented a cottage for about 8 months, and that cottage was a gatehouse. So basically a gatehouse is you have a main house, and on the same land near the gates is a gatehouse, and it was like a 3-bedroom property, 3-bed, 2-bath. And it was like an equestrian property in terms of they had lots of horses, so it was surrounded with paddocks. And what we found was, as lovely as it was seeing all the horses, all the manure that came from the horses, it meant that there was always loads of huge flies coming into the house. So it was like and then if it wasn't cleared up in time, and the smell and everything, so we thought, right, definitely when we're looking for a property, to look for something that had arable land so that we wouldn't have that issue again. Another thing that we looked for was for it to not have any public footpaths going through the garden or or very close to it, because there are some properties that when you go and when you're looking for them, they have public footpaths, and these public footpaths means that people have a right of way to walk through your garden or wherever that footpath is. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any that went through the garden or anything that went at close proximity to the garden. We didn't want to have a shared drive, because when we were renting the cottage at the gatehouse, that was a shared drive coming into the main house, and then you kind of turned off into us. And my husband wasn't really keen on like having a shared drive. He just liked to have his own drive. The other thing we wanted to make sure is that it didn't have any huge pylons in the garden or very close proximity to the property. And from doing some research, I know there's links to cancer to these pylons, and also I just didn't want anything like that. So that was a criteria, that it wasn't wasn't in your eye line from where you had your property, or some properties actually have them in the garden itself. We had to stick to a relatively good distance to London, so we couldn't come out too far because my son was still at secondary school, so we needed to be able to commute him into London. So that's why we chose the Chelmsford area, and we could get him into London, and his school was just within the M25, so we could get him here. So that's why we didn't go further away. It wasn't so much a problem with my daughter, our older daughter, because she was at university. So we thought, right, we do want to move, we do want to come out, but out of the big city, outside the M25, but we needed to be able to get him in every day. But yeah, so that was another criteria. Something else that we wanted was we didn't want any new developments being built like in the very near future or in the future. So whenever we looked for a property, we was mindful that we told the solicitor, if you let us know if there's any big new roads going to be coming across, and those usually take years, if not sometimes decades, but they are registered on land registry and when they're doing their searches. So we wanted to make sure that the property didn't have like, you know, some big development. So again, it would turn straight from being a countryside property into like a small town. So we definitely didn't want that. And we also wanted the space for renewable energy. So if we had to, you know, the roof line to put any solar panels on, also enough garden space. So if we if we were thinking of air source pump or ground source pump, which would need, so anything that would give like where we had the space to do so. So did we get all our criteria? Yes, and a little bit more, with a lot of prayer and you know, going before God and, you know, asking him to help us. We did manage to secure a property 12 years ago, and it was the right size property. It was extendable, and we have extended it. We're on 1/3 of an acre. We are really secluded. In terms of, we have no neighbours either side. We have farmland behind us, so we're one field away from one neighbour on one side, one field away from one neighbour on the other side, and there's farmland behind us, and there's woodland in front of us. And so our neighbours are relatively far away. So yeah, so it ticked those boxes. We don't have any floodplains on this property, and we are on a country lane, which is what we wanted. And we are surrounded by arable land. And now that we've lived in 2 properties, definitely preferred the arable land. Not that you don't get creatures still flying in of different things, and there's a whole different thing with when you have arable land around you, particularly in harvesting time, but I'll speak to you about that in another video. We don't have any public footpaths. The public footpaths are very far away. We don't have a shared drive. We have our own drive. We have no pylons where you can see visibly from our house. We did manage to move to Chelmsford so we could get him to school every day, but he is no longer at school. He's finished university and he's working now, and he's living away from home now. There's no new developments coming in the near future, as far as we're aware from when we had the searches done. And periodically we actually do searches, but if they're going to do anything, they do have to contact you as residents in the area. And we do have, because we're on about 1/3 of an acre, we do have enough space that if we wanted to do any renewable energy type, safe, as I said, for the ground source heat or anything like that, we have enough room to do so. And we do have enough room to grow. So I will show you in another video our kitchen garden, and I will show you in another video my cut flower garden, and kind of, so we have enough space. It did have a garage space, so we have garages, also have space for a greenhouse, which we would like to get a bigger one, and we also had space for a shed, so we put a new one there. So God has been good. He has blessed us, and that was kind of the things that we wanted to put on in our criteria, and it was answered. So when you're looking for a country property, those are the different things that you kind of need to consider. There's lots of other things that I'm sure that other people have, considered, because I think it can be specific as well to the country you're living in, and specific to even the area that you're living in. But for what we wanted to do, that was kind of the criteria, and so far so good. Everything, the boxes were all ticked, but we were really blessed. So subscribe to my channel. This series, I've been looking at the different things that we have been experiencing and the different things that we use and have come across, and I really want to share it with you, because when we were looking for a property, I couldn't really find any information in the UK of a lot of people who moved to the countryside and kind of shared it on YouTube. There might be some bits, and there's some good bits now, but something where it was quite extensive. So I want to be quite extensive in this, so that if anybody else is looking to move to the countryside, the tips that I can give you, all the different things that you come across. And it is so different to living in the city. It's wonderful. It can be hard work, but it's also really, really rewarding. And at times you're just in awe of just living in the countryside. So as I said, subscribe to my channel. Please click the notification bell for when I bring out the videos, so that you'll be notified straight away. Give this video a thumbs up, and all that really helps for me to be able to produce more videos. And I'll see you next week in the next video.